There are times when you don't want some of the files to be pushed to the remote repository. See, for example, you have created a project using Android Studio or Visual Studio. So these are basically tools, right? So whenever you create a project using some kind of tools, it is going to create some automatically generated folders or the files, right? See, for example, if you have ever created any project using Android Studio, it is going to create a folder called build. And similarly, if you have ever created any project using Visual Studio, it is going to create a folder called node modules, and these are the automatically generated folders, right? You don't want them to be pushed to the remote repository as they are going to take a lot of space. And of course, since they are automatically generated folders, the other developers who clones your project would get it from his build system, right? So I don't want these files to be pushed to the remote repository, so I'll use a concept called git ignore. Okay, let me quickly open my project and let's get started. So I have Git bash already opened and I have a project called ignore project. That's fine. So let me just say ls. I have few files and folders. Look at here, I have node modules folder and then I have build folder. That's awesome. Now if I say git status, it is going to list up all the files and folders, right, which are in my project address.txt, and it is showing up all the different files and folders. Now I don't want this build and node modules to be pushed to the remote repository, for example, right? For that, the first thing that you need to do is to create a file which has the extension git ignore. Look at here, there will be no name to this file. The name is nothing here, there is no name here, right? But the extension is git ignore, right? Look at here, extension is git ignore because dot git ignore. So the extension is git ignore, but there is no name to this file. Okay, so I am going to create that file now. So if you wanted to create a new file, you can create it from the git bash, or you can open any editor of your choice and you can create there also. That's not a problem, but for now I am going to create the file in the git bash itself using an editor called vi, because vi is the default editor which will be shipped along with the git bash. So I am going to use vi editor here. Okay, so I'll say vi followed by dot git ignore. But before creating this file, let me open this project in the explorer. Okay, file explorer. Look at here, we don't have dot git ignore file, right? Okay, now I'm going to create it. Okay, so we are basically creating a new file, but I'll not add any data. Instead, I'll just save this file. Okay, for that I'm going to say shift colon followed by wq. Okay, enter. Now if I say ls, look at here, where is our file which we have created? It will not list here. Instead, if you go to your file explorer, you can find that file. Look at here, you have a file which has the extension git ignore. So you got the file created. So what is our next step? The next step is to add some rules so that git will not look at these files or the folder which you don't want to push to the remote repository. Now the first thing that I want is to forget about build, because I don't want this build folder to be pushed to the remote repository. For that, what I have to do is to write a rule. So I am going to open dot git ignore file. Okay, dot git ignore, done, enter. Okay, if you ever wanted to add data into your vi editor, the first thing you need to do is to go to the insert mode. For that, you need to press I in your keyboard. When you press I, it will go to the insert mode. Now you are under insert mode where you can add the data. Okay, now what you can do is to add a rule to ignore build folder. Okay, if you ever wanted to ignore any folder, right, in our case it is build folder, and in your case it might be different, right? So you just need to specify that folder name, build, done. That's what our folder name is, right? Build, and then followed by forward slash. What does this particular rule here represents? That to ignore all the files which has the directory named build. So it will basically search in your entire project for the folder name which has build, and it will ignore that folder. Okay, so I'm going to save this. So I'm pressing escape followed by shift wq, shift colon wq, enter. Now if I say git status, look at here, is the build folder listing here? No, right? Build folder is not listing because we just ignored it, right? Similarly, let me ignore node modules folder. Okay, so for that again I'm going to open dot git ignore. So I'll go to the insert mode by pressing I and then followed by node underscore modules and then forward slash. Same procedure, right? Now again I'm going to press escape followed by shift colon WQ. Done. Now if I say git status, look at here. So now we have ignored build folder and the node modules folder. Now we are safe because they are automatically generated folders. We don't want them to be pushed to the remote repository. Fine. Now if you look at our project closely, you can find few files which has the extension log, and I don't want them to be pushed to the remote repository. So for that I wanted to add a rule. Now for example, if I don't want this debug.log to be pushed to the remote repository, so what I will do is to add this particular file. So for that I'm going to open git ignore. Okay, so here I'll go to the insert mode by pressing the I. Here I'll mention the file name which I don't want to push to the remote repository. So here I want debug.log not to be pushed to the remote repository, right? So I'll just specify that particular file name. So I'm going to press escape followed by shift colon W Q. Done. Now if I say git status, look at here, debug.log is ignored. Okay, what do you mean by ignore here? Does it delete from our project? No, it will not be deleted from our project. Look at here. You can find that file here, but it will not be tracked by git. That's all. So now if I say git status, look at here, it will not be listed here, which is nothing but you can't push it to the remote repository. Now just think that you are working on a very big project and you have thousands of .log files and you don't want them to be pushed to the remote repository. Then how will you do? You have to basically enter all those files name in the .gitignore file, right? No. There is a way to do that. We can add a regular expression. Okay, so for that what I will do is to open gitignore file. Done. Now what I will do is to go to the insert mode by pressing I. That is also done. Now I have to write a regular expression. What I will do here is to add star. Star here says that I am taking all the files. Okay, star means all the files, and then followed by the extension you wanted to ignore. Okay, I will say dot log. What do you mean by this? All the files which has the extension log will be ignored. That's it. Now I'll press escape followed by shift colon WQ. Done. If I say git status now, okay, it should not display log files. Look at here. So it has ignored all the files which has the extension log. Now one question may arise. What if I want one particular file which has the .log extension to be pushed to the remote repository? Good question, right? You have 1,000 files. You have ignored all the files using star.log. But what if you want one particular file to be pushed to the remote repository? How will you handle it? There is a way for that. Okay, so if I say ls here, I have few files, right? For example, I want prod.log, which is basically production.log file. So I want this particular file to be pushed to the remote repository. Okay, how will you handle it? So for that I will do it now. I will open .gitignore file. Okay, vi space .gitignore, enter. I will go to the insert mode, and here, so what does the top line says? Ignore all the files which has the .log extension, right? Now let me write a new rule. Okay, so I am going to enter exclamation mark followed by the file which I wanted to push to the remote repository. So in this case it is prod.log, right? It is prod.log. So what does this line says? Accept prod.log. It says that to accept prod.log. The top line says take all the files which has the extension log, and the bottom line says accept prod.log. You take all the files but leave prod.log. That's what we are saying here. Okay, I am going to press escape followed by WQ. We are just writing and then quitting. Now if I say git status, look at here, you got prod.log. Awesome, right? So in this way there are a lot of rules you will come across whenever you work on the real projects. So I have touched few basic rules which we come across often, but in your case you may come across some other rule. So if you ever come across such type of rules and if you are stuck, you can always mention in our comment section and we will be always there to help you guys.